When I set out to create a DIY video for YouTube, it's always my goal to make the most definitive guide that leaves nothing to chance. But this 6WB cluster install has just been kicking my butt, and I've spent the last few weeks researching, filming, troubleshooting, trying everything that I can do to get this thing to work. And it's just not there yet. I filmed not one but two nearly complete install videos and had to completely scrap both of them because the cluster still didn't work in the end. So if you're wondering why I haven't uploaded in a little while, that's what I've been up to. I'll be the first to tell you that I don't know everything. I'm here to learn just like everyone else. But I want to share this experience with the community because I believe that any information that I can share on the 6WB install will be helpful to someone. Today I want to explain all of the issues that we've run into so far. I want to share everything that we've learned up until this point, and then I want to show you what I think might be the solution. I want to give a huge thank you to Brian at Keys and Isaac at Beamer Geeks for the ongoing tech support. We've had a three-way chat going as we try to diagnose and troubleshoot this. So with most DIYs, whether it's spark plugs, gaskets, suspension, they can only be installed one way, and as long as you follow the steps in order correctly, you'll end up with working parts in the end. When you're working with BMW electronics like the 6WB, there are variables based on how your car is configured that can completely change the way that the DIY goes, and the problem is you might not find out until the very end when you go to code it that some little nuanced difference with your car makes the cluster not work. So here's what we've learned so far. So most F30s come with one of two gauge clusters, either the standard analog cluster or the 6WA extended cluster. Now if your car came with a 6WA, it should be as simple as just taking the stock cluster out and putting the new 6WB in its place. All of the wiring is already in there. But if you're coming from the base peasant spec cluster like I was, it's a little bit more complicated because your car will only have one of the two wires that are required. Now it's kind of confusing because if you press the start stop button, the screen actually turns on, but it's not actually communicating with the car. So if you were to start the engine, you see the gauges, but they don't do anything. When I went to code it for the first time, I checked the box for the 6WB cluster to activate it, and then when I went to finalize the coding, the software was like, what cluster? So it's kind of misleading because like I said, you see the gauges turn on, they're just not communicating with the correct module in the car. So I did some research and realized that I needed that extra fiber optic cable that goes from the 6WB through the dashboard and into the head unit. That way it can communicate with the other modules. We ordered that and it took about a week for it to come in. In the meantime, I found a video from Beamer Tech showing how to feed that fiber optic cable through the dashboard, and then you can see them plug it into an open fiber optic port on the back of their head unit. So I get the wire in the mail, I'm all geared up to film, confident that I've got everything that I need finally to get this done. I take the cluster apart once again, tear apart the dashboard, go to the back of my head unit, and what do you know, there's already a fiber optic cable plugged into the port. But wait, there's an open port next to it, I can just use that, right? So I plug it into the blank spot on the head unit, connect the other end to the 6WB, reconnect the battery, go through the whole coding process once again, and it's still not connecting. So the next troubleshooting step was to disconnect the fiber optic cable from the 6WB cluster with the battery connected. That way we could see if any light was shining through, and that would tell us if either that second fiber optic port on the head unit just wasn't activated yet, or if maybe I had somehow damaged or broken the fiber optic cable during the install, since they are kind of delicate. So I take it out and sure enough, there's no light coming through the fiber optic cable. So back to the wiring harness, I disconnected the green fiber optic cable that was already installed in the car, and I took a macro shot on my phone just to see what that connection looked like. And what do you know, there's only fiber optics in one of those two slots. So the other one that I tried plugging the 6WB into didn't actually have fiber optics behind it. It was just like a blank dummy port. I'm assuming it's just like a placeholder on the harness for cars with a different head unit. So just as an experiment, I unplugged that green cable that was in the car and I plugged the 6WB into the working port, and I was able to see red light coming through the other side where the cluster was. I plugged it in, went to code it, and still no luck. Back to the internet, and again, it's really hard to find resources because you have to find a DIY where the car is configured precisely like yours. Otherwise, things are going to be different and it's just not going to work. I came across a single YouTube video where the guy had the same base cluster as mine with the same green wire plugged into the one port, and he explains that you need a three-way fiber optic cable that will allow you to plug in both the green wire and the 6WB at the same time into that one working port. So I found a seller on eBay that had local US inventory, and I should have that cable sometime next week, and I'm just praying that this is the last piece of the puzzle. If you're watching this and you have any additional ideas or info, just leave them in the comments below. I would greatly appreciate that. These cars are incredibly complicated and have a seemingly endless number of configurations that can affect the outcome of a DIY like this. I'm just very fortunate to be surrounded by some very smart people who have been able to sort of help me out along the way here. It's important to remember that these outcomes aren't a failure, it's just an opportunity to expand our knowledge and share information, and while I may not have a working 6WB cluster just yet, I am now an expert at taking apart F30 dashboards. Also, let's start a discussion down in the comments. What was your most frustrating DIY project? What went wrong? What was the solution? And I will look forward to reading those as I wait for this 3-way fiber optic cable, which hopefully solves our problem. Thanks for watching, guys. I will see you in the next one.